a $75 jazz bass be worth playing some good jazz, rock, metal, anything else on it? And is it more than a beginner bass? Well, I got one in my hands, so let's check it out. This is something from Glarry. Just got this sent out and just getting it plugged up. So let's go over a piece at a time and then give it a listen and see what we got. So you can tell it's basically in the tradition of the Fender Jazz Bass. We've got the standard body and a classic burst that's black on the back. It's not rebursted. And you've got the white pickguard, metallic control cavity cover, and two jazz pickups, wide poles. Kind of reminds me of something like maybe a Seymour Duncan or something like that would have on there. These aren't Seymour Duncans, but you know, those kind of wide, flat, or traditional Fenders. Standard Fender bridge, Fender style, standard Fender style keys again. So it is really meant to be a low-cost alternative to all the traditional Fender and Fender copies. Now, as far as the body's weight, it's a fairly lightweight bass guitar. We've got, I'm guessing this is probably alder, might be even basswood, I'm not sure. But with it being lightweight, checking the center point, it's not neck heavy. So that's a big advantage, being able to get a decent bass that's not really neck heavy or made cheaply, and that the balance isn't paid attention to. So that was one of the first things that struck me here. Now, as far as the neck, which for me is the most crucial part, it feels kind of like a satin finish, but basically almost unfinished. It feels kind of like a raw wood almost kind of thing. It's not rough feeling, but there's definitely not a lot of finish or a big even satin coating on it. It's just very sanded down, very smooth, but it does feel fairly decent. For people who are familiar with jazz basses, something that's really going to be different about it though, and not in the tradition of most jazz basses, is the thickness of the neck. This is probably the thickest jazz bass neck I've ever seen. You can see how wide it is. It's really deep. The nut width is the traditional width. Feels just like one off the shelf from any other company, but the depth going back to front, definitely chunkier, probably closer to a P bass, which can have some, depending on your position, advantages or disadvantages. That's going to mean more neck stability, which that's, for me, a big deal. But it's also, if you have small hands, might be a little bit of a disadvantage, but if you have good technique, you can usually get around it. Now, my first impressions are that, surprisingly, what I find with a lot of cheaper basses is that you get fret tang over the edges, or it's just not polished or rounded off. You can see there's none of that going on here. These are well rounded over. I don't feel them when I move up and down the front fingerboard, and it's comfortable. I don't feel like there's any parts of it that are unfinished or that the fingerboard is going to cut or give me any kind of problems as far as moving up and down it. Also, the edge of the fingerboard, this is a surprising detail on a cheap bass to me, is it's actually been rounded over. Now, one more thing that I found kind of interesting about the overall playability in the neck is that you can get all the way up to the top fret, which not all jazz models always have. And it's comfortable, nothing's in the way. I've had a couple of different jazz basses from a few different companies, and not all of them had that kind of deep contour cut in there. So again, it's kind of a surprising detail to find in this level and price point on a bass. The neck is straight, and again, surprised at this too, that I couldn't find any dead spots on the neck. Everything's playable. No dead notes, no fret buzz, no problems with any kind of S-curve or anything where it's really kind of twisted out. It's straight. The fret job's actually pretty decent, and everything's clear, and yeah, I really couldn't find a problem with it, which is kind of funny because I've picked up more expensive basses in guitar shops that definitely had fret buzz problems or weren't set up well or something like that, and I'm going to have to make pretty minimal adjustments to make this exactly how I would set it up when it came right out of the box. I didn't get it from a store. It was shipped out to me, so it braved weather, and I believe it's made in China. So for it to make it from there to Los Angeles to here and still be basically playable out of the box, it's kind of an impressive feat there. So now let's take a look at the pickups here and see what we got. Again, a standard jazz set. You've got, to me, it seems like a fairly bright sound. Not excessively, but definitely not going to be a vintage type of sound. It's articulate, and you have the standard controls for tone if you want to back it off a little bit. Then you have the classic 2-volume setup again. So dialing off the front, you've got the kind of squawky rear tone, or if you play at the back, rolling up the front. Very traditional type of sound. The pickups are clear. I don't get a ton of buzz out of them, extra noise, anything like that. So it really kind of strikes me that you've got a fairly decent set of pickups and a bass that costs less than the average replacement single pickup does. Again, pretty impressive, but let's keep going with it. Now, as far as how it compares to other jazz basses tone-wise that I've tried out, again, it seems like it's directly on the middle, very similar to them, but I'd say a little bit more on the bright side, all pickups combined and soloed out. Now, one other thing to mention about the neck is that even though it is deeper, I found it really overall easily playable. It feels fairly fast, advanced or faster technique. It plays like you would expect to, an instrument that was already set up and already good to go. So really just not finding a lot of problems or a lot of things to pick at. And at this price point, what are you going to pick at? So we've talked all about the playability and no problems there. So let's toss on some drums and jam on it a little bit and see how it sounds. So, final verdict. Really impressive. I mean, at this price point, to get a bass that's actually playable, doesn't have any dead frets, it's comfortable, you have no problem playing at the bottom, middle, or top of the neck, no fret buzz, an actually usable and decent set of pickups in it. Can't go wrong. It's a pretty unbeatable deal. So, I'm going to put the links below on where you can find this, get one for yourself, and again, great bass for beginners, intermediate, and even an experienced player having this as a travel bass, a backup, or, something you jam on every once in a while and no problems with it. It does what it's supposed to. And for $75, come on, can't beat it. So let me know if you decide to grab one of these. I'd like to hear everybody's opinion on it, your thoughts on it, and see how it plays for you. So hit me up in the comments below. Let me know what you think, or ask any other questions. As always, like, subscribe, and share. It definitely helps out. And a lot more reviews coming up this week. Got some other processors, just like the pedals I did in the past week, and some software, and some other basses as well. So, thanks as always for watching. I'll see you on the next one.